In 1967, deep in the forest of Bluff Creek, California, two men captured something on film, something that would become the most controversial footage in paranormal history. A massive, human-like figure covered in hair walking across the sandbar, turning and looking directly at the camera. They called it Bigfoot. But nearly 60 years later, one question still divides believers, skeptics, and investigators. Was it real, or was it all just a lie? A new documentary capturing Bigfoot claims it finally has the answer. A man in a suit, a staged encounter, a hoax that fooled the world. But if that's true, why hasn't anyone ever proven it? Tonight, we're opening the case file. We're breaking down both sides, the hoax and the possibility that what was filmed was something real. This is Deep Woods Paranormal. My name is Matt Harvey. I'm the founder and lead investigator with Deep Woods Paranormal. And tonight we're going to go back into the Patterson Gimlin film because there's been a lot of controversy about whether now this film is real or not. We're going to break this down into 5 segments. Segment 1, the original encounter. Okay. Segment 2, capturing the Bigfoot hoax argument. Segment 3, the counter argument, why it might be real. Segment 4, field comparisons. This is my field comparisons. And number 5, the bigger question. All right, so let's talk about segment 1, the original encounter. So the Patterson Gimlin film was filmed in 1967. Essentially, what happened was there was a couple of guys, Patterson and Gimlin, who essentially had found some possible footprints of Bigfoots, and they set off into the woods to go find out what this was. You know, they're just doing their research, trying to figure it out, trying to see what was going on. I know they were also motivated to possibly get this thing on camera and also to possibly make some money off of it, maybe get some publicity or their business and stuff like that, which actually did happen. They did really well off making this video. So let's talk about the Bluff Creek setting. So they were riding up on horseback. They were riding through an area that had just flooded a couple days before. To set the scene, basically a very overgrown, heavily forested area. It was, at this point, because of all the heavy rain and flooding that had happened, there was a lot of downed trees, and the creek was running pretty good. They basically came up on a clearing at Bluff Creek and essentially were shocked to see a creature bending down and with its hands cupped, sipping up some water, right? So Patterson, I believe it was Patterson or Gimlin, basically tried to grab his camera, almost fell off his horse, pretty much did, falls to the ground, gets up, looks up, and starts to record this creature. Well, this creature reacts, and this creature basically stood up and took a couple steps and then realized it was still being followed. So basically it turned around and, like mid-stride, turned its whole upper body, shoulders, neck, head, waist, and in the middle of a gap, looked back at him, and then essentially took a couple more steps and then basically went up this hill, this pretty steep graded hill, and then disappeared. Now, there's another part to this film that people don't show a lot. There's another 30 to 45 second segment where Gimlin or Patterson, whoever was recording, records another creature standing in the woodline. And that's kind of interesting. Let's talk about segment 2, okay? The capturing Bigfoot hoax argument. So, essentially, Bob Hermonis says that he wore the suit and that Roger Patterson staged the footage. Okay, so the core claims in capturing Bigfoot. says that harmonious confession is the central part of this documentary. He claims that um, Roger Patterson orchestrated the film, and essentially said he set everything up. He's basically, this is what I've heard about the film. I've actually not seen this yet. I went to watch it and it was taken down, which is interesting as well. I don't know if it's been re-released or not. Only a very few handful of people have actually seen the documentary, to my knowledge, at this point. Um, anyways, basically, unlike some documentaries, this one basically treats Harmonious's story as credible evidence, not just a possibility. Supposedly, basically, he says, originally he had said that he was in the suit and was discredited and stuff like that. So let's talk about the suit for a second. So he was saying that the suit basically was just simple but effective. It was just just a basic fur suit, and it had padding and a mask. Um, and back in the 1960s, the costume tech was not great. But for a brief, shaky film like that, shot back in the 60s with a 6mm camera, the quality probably was not great. I mean, if we had shot that same video today, if we had a 4K, 6K video camera from the distance he was shooting from and the time of the day that he was shooting from, you'd be able to see every hair follicle on that creature. You'd be able to see every muscle movement. You'd be able to see every last thing. You'd probably be able to see the color of the eyes. There would be a lot of definition. You could see the rocks clearly. You could see the outline of the rocks. You could have seen every last thing. You could probably see if there were bugs on the ground, right? The argument isn't perfect that it's, a suit, but, basically the thought between the three of the guys was that it was good enough to fool people. Again, the quality of the video, it's always been in question. It's always been an issue. Looking at it, it's probably if it's real, and I'm looking at this from both sides, guys. I'm on the fence on this. I'm not sure if it's real. I'm not sure if it's fake. And you guys can leave your comments down below. Please be courteous in your comments, and please don't argue over this. This is just it's a real blow. If it's fake, it's a real blow to the paranormal community in the Bigfoot field. If it's real still, then the Bigfoot community is under attack. And I mean, people are going after some of the best evidence that possibly ever is, right? So they're saying that the walk is not unique, and that basically it can be replicated, and they're saying it's an exaggerated human movement, that he walked a certain way on purpose to make it look non-human. The arm swing, the stride, the posture, nothing in the gait proves it's non-human. I know a lot of scientists that are into Bigfoot have looked into this. Jeff Meldrum looked into it. He's a pretty damn smart. He was a pretty smart guy, and for him to be fooled, unless he was in on it, is pretty crazy. I mean, that guy knew footprints like nothing. I mean, he was very, very smart, and for him to think that it was real means a lot. Like I said, unless he was in on the hoax, which I doubt he was. I would hope he wouldn't be. The camera and the scale, doubts the distance from the subject, the film speed. If it was scaled differently, Patty could be a normal human size. Basically, they said this creature was 7 feet tall, plus feet tall. What if it wasn't? What if it was only 6 feet tall, or 5'5", or 5'6", whatever, and the camera distorted the video, right? there's an argument that the film became legendary because people wanted proof and they wanted um, to make Bigfoot real. And because so many people believed in it and wanted it to be, it's become what it's become, right? Um, so that's basically their argument. They documented that they faked it. They did it on purpose. They knew what they were doing, just to make revenue, to support their business. And they got a lot of fame out of it. I mean, they made a lot of money off of it. So the third talking point is the counter argument, why it might be real. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit, and I'll scroll back down to where I was just a second ago. Um, so where capturing Bigfoot gets pushed back. So even in the skeptic space, there are still sticking points. So here's three things for you. There was no physical suit ever found, okay? Harmonious's credibility issues. The muscle movement still has not been disproved. So let's dive a little bit deeper into these. So no physical site has ever been found. That's still the biggest hole in this whole hoax idea, right? There was no verified costume, no materials, or no builder ever came forward. So where did the suit come from? Where did it go? Where is it now? Is it like in somebody's wall? You know, what happened to the suit? I think that, you know, everybody says that for Bigfoot to be real, you need a body. Well, maybe, just maybe, for this video to be proven real 100%, somebody needs to produce the actual suit, right? I mean, it's got to go both ways. And like I said, I'm being centered here. I'm being right down the middle with this. So Harmonious's credibility issues, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. So his story has changed over time. There's actually no hard evidence tying him to the film, and others involved denied his claims. So, I mean, what do we think about that? I mean, was he really, did he really do it? Was he really a part of it? Or was he just now wanting the fame himself? He saw how big the movie got or the video got and how much money they made off of it and how well they did. And he said, oh, you know, I can be a part of that too. I can just claim it was a hoax. And it's really interesting now that, you know, Patterson and Gimlin are both gone, that I think both of them have passed. All of a sudden this video comes out, right? After they're gone. So they basically can't just come back out and defend themselves. Okay, so let's also talk about the muscle movement problem. We talked about Jeff Meldrum. I've seen the video. I'm not an expert, but I can see what he's talking about in that documentary he did, where he was trying to debunk. He was trying to figure out if it was real or not, I believe. Like I said, I don't think he was part of it. I really don't. I hope not. I had nothing but respect for him. I was really a big fan of his. You know, I always wanted to meet him. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to. But you know, if this Patterson film shows muscle movement and, you know, real flex of muscle, it would have been really hard to do back in the day. Again, we got grainy film, and, you know, the people have tried to debunk it or prove it real through AI, which I don't know if AI, you know, a lot of people have come out and said AI says it's real. Some people say it's fake. I mean, it's there. Everything's all over the place with this right now. But if that muscle movement is real, that possibly could be a real creature, right? So, I mean, you got to really look at this with a grain of salt, and you really have to analyze it and really look at everything, not just because somebody says, "Oh, it's a hoax," and "Oh, we purposely came out and said, oh, well, you know, we knew we hoaxed it. We know we hoaxed it." You got to look at all the evidence We got to break it all down. This is a case file. We're looking at this as a case file. We're not looking at it as, oh, well, we're trying to prove Bigfoot real. We're not trying to prove Bigfoot real. Bigfoot's, either you believe or you don't, or maybe you're on the fence, right? I never try and prove Bigfoot's real. I experience things, I share it with you guys, and let you guys decide. And again, you guys have to make up your own minds. Don't let anybody else make up your mind for you. Take a real look at this. If this ever does come back out so we can actually see this, I would be interested in watching this. I would sit down and take it with a grain of salt and look at it and say, okay, I want the actual facts. I want the facts. I don't want fake, And the problem with this also is this documentary is going to make a crap ton of money, right? People are going to be all over this. It's a great way for the people that were involved with this to make a lot of money too. Hey, we've taken the best Bigfoot video ever out there, supposedly. And I think there's a lot of actual other great videos out there that are just as good, if not better than this video, the Patterson Gimlin film, or the most famous one, and we've debunked it. Okay, so now you're making tons of money. Now you got your own fame because you claim that you debunked this, right? All right, so let's get into segment 3. We've already talked about this. The gate problem. It's still not perfectly replicated. And again, you got to go watch the video where Dr. Meldrum has this guy in a lab. I think he's about 7 feet tall. I think he's a basketball player, but he's in a suit and he's trying to replicate the Patterson film, right? He's trying to replicate the walk and he can't quite do it. So, I mean, it's really hard to fake that evidence with the 1960s tech. But again, they're looking at the natural versus exaggerated movement. And we talked about, the credibility issues with Homonius. All right, so let's look at my field comparisons. Okay. I've had, 50, 60 plus encounters with Bigfoots. And let me break down what encounters means. I've heard something. I've seen something. I've experienced wood knocks. I've experienced sounds I can't explain, right? I've had daytime sightings. I've had nighttime sightings. I've had close encounters with them. Some that were scary as hell close. Encounters I really honestly never want to have again, to be honest with you. I never want to be that close to one of these things ever again, unless they're, darted, sedated on the ground, and I'm just trying to get some quick, fur or some saliva or maybe a blood sample or something, maybe some fingerprints, skin samples, whatever I can get to prove that these things are real and get them protected. But I've had so many encounters with them. And I'll go back to one of my stories because this is how I think that the Patterson Gimlin film is real, okay? Well, just bear with me. I'm not saying it's real, but I think I've had a very similar situation to what possibly Patterson and Gimlin had. I was at Black Star Canyon, 2 o'clock in the morning. Been up there all night. Been up there 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. Had walked probably 3, 4 miles into the woods. If you don't know where Black Star Canyon, it's out in the Orange County, California. It's up in the Santa Ana Mountains, up in the Cleveland National Forest area. You're welcome to look up Black Star Canyon. You'll probably find some videos of me, and you'll find a whole bunch of stuff on paranormal stuff and whatever else. Anyways, so I used to go up there all the time. I spent 12, 13 years of my life up there. That was my second home. I spent a lot of time up there. In fact, that's where I had my first Bigfoot encounter. You're welcome, guys are welcome to go back and listen to some of my other podcasts where I talk about my first encounter. I've talked about it way too much on here. Anyways, I'm hoping to have some new ones for you guys soon. So one night I'm walking out. I had no activity, no ghost hunting activity, not a single blip on the K2, right? No audio, no EVPs, no anything really, no noises. It was just quiet as could be. So I'm walking back out, and I just felt like I was being watched. And as you're walking back out, it kind of opens back up. There's a field on the left and a field on the right, and there's barbed wire fence. The left side is where the old ranch used to be, over there where they used to raise cattle and whatever else. And so I'm walking out, and I'm walking past the gate, just walked through the gate, probably walked about 20 or 30 feet past the gate. And I just felt like I was being watched. So I look over to my left, and I had a flashlight that was like a headlight. And this thing was 2,000 lumens or something. It was super bright. I mean, if I turned that thing on full blast, it would blind the hell out of you, especially at close range. So, anyways, I'm walking. I didn't turn it on right away. I just walked over to the fence on my left, and I'm just looking for any movement. And there's a tree line about 30, 40 feet back. And basically the rest is kind of open. You can still see where the old pens used to be. And in between there's a couple trees and stuff like that. And there's a creek that kind of runs up through there. And I'm looking over there, and I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, didn't feel anything. I turned my light on. I start shining it into the trees to see if maybe I can see maybe I can see some eye shine, right? So I start shining it from right to left. And as I got to the left, standing in a clearing, and it was dark, you couldn't see this thing until I spotlighted it, was a Bigfoot. It was just a juvenile Bigfoot, maybe about my height. It wasn't huge. It was about my height and build. I'm about 6'2", maybe a little bigger or smaller. And it's about my build. I'm about 300 pounds. It's probably skinnier than I was, probably lighter than I was. And it's just standing there looking at me. And so essentially, we had a staring contest for about, 5-6 seconds. And then it finally lost interest in me and literally turned and walked away from me. But as it turned, it took one step with its left foot first. Then it took another step with its right foot, again, turning the hips, turning the shoulder, basically the whole body, upper torso, turned towards me in like a wide gape, right? Instead of walking one foot in front of the other, it took one step and then one big step forward with the hips turned, and then basically turned the whole shoulders back to me, looked at me for a split second to make sure I wasn't following it, and then it continued to walk. It covered about 30 feet and about 3 or 4 more steps and disappeared into the night. So that was my Patterson Gimlin film realization that could be real. I'm like, holy crap, that was the Patterson Gimlin film. And the whole way home, I'm sure I was just buzzing and really, happy and excited. And I'm sure I got home and, I was just basically going crazy. But, that's I've seen that exact thing on the film, the Patterson Gimlin film. I've seen that. That was not a person in a suit, guys. There was no other cars there. Why the hell would somebody be out there at 2:00 in the morning, not knowing I'm there, and just show up and put a suit on and then go and take the time to go walk and do that? I wasn't recording. I didn't have a camera in my hands. I wish I would have, but I didn't. And so that's just a personal experience for me. I saw that, going back to all the other sightings I had up there and the pictures I got, the trap cam photos I got. And then moving on to Joe's camp. Joe's camp, we saw some crazy things. We saw literally that, 18-footer, 18-footer, basically one step, a whole freaking road. That road was probably about 14, 15 feet wide and stuff. So that was crazy. And to see that was just insane. So it was just really interesting to me that had happened. So as I kind of went on, I started having more and more and more sightings. The Patterson Gimlin film became more real to me. The more things I look at in the film, right? I break it down. I see the muscle movement. I see the other Bigfoot standing up there. watching, um, probably as backup. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's the dominant male. Um, and then here's something, and I don't want to be too crazy, but what about the bosoms, if you will? How do you fake those? How do they make those move? Right? Um, I'm sure you could, but why wouldn't you just, if you're making a costume back in the day, would you put bosoms on, a costume like that? Would that be something you would do? It was a female, right? It was a female Bigfoot, not a male, a female. Why would you make it a female? And that throws up question marks in my head too, right? If a guy's going to be in the suit, why would you make it a female? Um, and other things like that. There's just a lot of things that just leave question marks in my head. If the Patterson Gimlin film is a fake, if I'm looking at it as a critic for myself, and I'm trying to break down the Patterson Gimlin film because it's only about 2 minutes long, I'm looking at the crappy film footage. I'm looking at the blurriness. It's been cleaned up quite a bit. So, stuff like that. Having another Bigfoot up above, waiting for the other Bigfoot. Again, why is not talked about in this film, right? Why didn't they bring that up in the documentary that they just made? Who was in the other suit, right? What's going on with that? Why is there no talk about that either? So, the behavior I see with this creature, and now I'm at the point where I'm starting to study other primates, chimpanzees, gorillas, stuff like that. Because when I was at the zoo one day, I watched this gorilla basically walking on 2 feet, right, upright, walking, and then basically came down on all fours and put its knuckles down on the ground and was walking on all fours. I'm like, holy crap, I've seen that before. I have seen that before. You know what I mean? And so the more I research this film, yes, I could lead either way, but it still leaves a lot of question marks. If it's fake, why aren't they explaining some of the other things? You've got the other Bigfoot, right? You got the muscle movement. You got the credibility issue. You got the fact that nobody's there to basically defend themselves except for the families. Why did this take so long to come out? Why didn't they make this documentary right after the film was originally put out? Was somebody paid off? Were they paying him off? What was going on? If I'm looking at this 100%, down the middle, and basically, why did they wait so long to come out and say this was a hoax? I know they made a lot of money off of it, but I mean, essentially, it should be debunked pretty quickly. All right, so segment 5, the bigger question. Again, if it's fake, does it disprove Bigfoot? Or is just one piece of evidence? And again, these are just my opinions, my thoughts. You guys really have to have your own thoughts, your own opinions, make up your own minds. But do it, creatively. Take a hard look at this. I don't care if you're a skeptic. I don't care if you're a believer. I don't care if you're on the fence. Take a look at this film with both skeptical and a believer. Become what I do is when I go out into investigations, whether it's ghost hunting, Bigfoot, Dogman, UFOs, whatever, I'm basically a detective. I'm looking at all the clues and going, okay, does this add up? Does this add up? Does this look real? Does this match what's supposed to be there, right? Or does this look fake? Did somebody mess with this? Or are they just saying that this is something it isn't, right? Does this film define the mystery? And in my opinion, I don't think so. Even if they debunk this, I mean, I've had too many of my own encounters where I can say Bigfoot is real. And there's so many other videos and films out there. They're not all fake, guys. Where do all these footprints come from? Where do all these hair samples come from that they can't disprove? Why do the hair samples come back human, DNA and unknown, right? What's that about? Basically, I don't know. I think Bigfoot is. I think what's happening is we might be getting too close to something. There's too many people looking now, and there's too much possible evidence coming out at this point. And I think that basically what's happening is that they're trying to debunk this. They're trying to throw this out. They're trying to get this people to start disbelieving in Bigfoots, right? I mean, it started with ghosts, and basically, for the longest time, ghosts weren't real. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Ghosts weren't real. Now, what? 60-70% of people believe in ghosts. Look at the UFO stuff going on. Basically back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, if you thought UFOs were real, they'd hand you a tinfoil hat, right? Now even the government started to say, oh, well, you know what? We don't know what these things are, right? But why are they going after Bigfoot? Why is Bigfoot such a big thing? Let's think about this for a second. Okay, so as I've been told, and I've said this many times on this show before, if people really knew what was in the forest, would you go in the forest? If you knew there was a big, hairy, giant ape-like creature in the forest, would you take your kids in there? What would happen if they're proven real? Well, let's see. You get a bunch of activists. You get a bunch of people protecting them, right? There'd be rights. What if they're partially human? Oh my gosh. Now you shoot one, you've just murdered somebody, right? Also, what happens to the forestry industry, right? Well, we can't build there because Bigfoots live there. Now you got housing development and urban projects and all kinds of stuff. No. You can't build in the Bigfoot territory. That's their territory. They need a space, they need to be protected, right? There's a whole lot of stuff that could be affected if Bigfoots are proven real, right? Okay, so all in with this. So what do you guys think? Was the Patterson Gimlin film a hoax? Or did two men actually capture something we still can't explain? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll ask you this. If it was fake, where's the proof? And if it was real, what else is still out there? My name is Matt Harvey. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening to the Deep Woods Paranormal Podcast. And I will catch you guys on the next one.